If you're here from scrolling, you have to click the part 1 link. Trust me, it's worth it. Just ask everyone that came here from clicking the part 2 link. I finally was over here on the passenger side and I disconnected this from the rest of the network. It was restored. Plug it back in and bing, lost communication. Which means it's gotta be one of these modules or this wiring going to them. It wasn't. I started popping each one of these out individually, waiting for the communication to be restored. Only way I could restore communication is if I unplugged this wire here that connects the 2 star connectors together. None of these made a difference. That meant was that the star connector itself was what was dropping the communication. I've heard of these going bad before, but not dropping a whole network. The only thing in here is terminating resistors, and I already tested the resistance on it while it was in the truck. Let's see. We got 61. 62, and this should be your 120 terminating. This should be 10. Well, the resistors are all good. According to the information I could find, that capacitor's fine. So it tests good. The star connector's gotta be bad. I drive myself nuts, and I've tested it probably 100 times, and I eventually found something. Watch this. The tester on it, we got a number. See it changing? What I found out, the longer you hold the tester on here, that number gradually keeps increasing. Now it's up to 3.6. If I take my screwdriver and I short this together and I retest it, it always starts over after shorting it out, and the longer you hold this on here, the higher that number gets. I found another junk board laying around so I could find another capacitor similar to that one to compare results with. 3.9. No matter what I do, that will stay at 3.9. That number will not change on any of the other capacitors on this board that I've tested. Over here to the microscope, see those lines through there? And if I tilt it, black, burnt marks, son of a bitch. Tests good unless you keep testing it. That little capacitor inside the star connector that is there to help eliminate noise across the system, over time would gradually work its way out of spec. The only thing that didn't make sense was the 33 miles. Whether you're idling or driving, stuff is still communicating over the network. Should be based on like a time frame, not a mileage frame. So my theory is this. At idle, the modules are not, they're communicating, but it's not as chaotic as it is when you're driving. You're gonna have a lot of other messages and a lot more messages being sent over the communication network driving down the highway versus sitting there in park. So the network must have to be really, really busy to make that capacitor go out of spec. And when it does, it's at about 33 miles. And then after it discharges or cools down, whatever it's doing is when the communication is restored. I don't know if that's what's actually happening. Either way, this has sucked. And the new star connector fixed it. It hasn't done it since.